Hey kawan, welcome to EDCReady. Today we are doing a disassembly of this guy. This is the Quiet Carry Waypoint. Now, getting this guy out of the box, clip feels very tight. The action was, although it was a wash action, so it was not very fall shutty as you can see here, was a little bit gritty, but I've carried this guy for over a day now, flicking it like non-stop for the last 24 hours, and it has really smoothed now a little bit. Now the detent was a little bit hard coming out of the box. It was still hard by the end of that first day until today. It's still a pretty hard detent. It's actually quite difficult to flick it with the left hand or the reverse finger flick like that. Quite difficult. So I'm going to take this apart and show you guys what's on the inside. But before that, a little disclaimer. This is actually my third time taking this guy apart. First time, I found some surprise screws inside the scales here, which I didn't expect because I've seen disassemblies of the titanium version and it didn't have those small screws on the inside. This guy though definitely does, and I'm gonna share with you guys like how difficult it was to take those out. And then the other reason why this is my third time filming it is that the first time I filmed it, my memory card filled up. So that is a definite user error for me. So one thing I do like about this knife is that all of the screws are T8 screws. So I have here my T8 bit kit. Now the screws here are a little bit shallow, so you want to use fresh T8 bits. Unlike me, I am using very worn T8 bits. So you have no tool, it's not tooled on the other side. The great thing is that it is not free spinning, which means it's great for making sure that it doesn't spin freely because it has a D-shaped pivot on the inside. I'm gonna take this apart, take out this screw, also T8. Now the great thing about the titanium version is that just by taking out this screw and this screw, you can immediately disengage or disassemble the knife. Unfortunately, the G10 version, as I found out, is very different from the titanium version. You have to take the clips off. Now you have to take that screw off to be able to take the clip off, and the reason why you want to do that is because of that. You have some more T8 screws down here. Very shocking. I do not know why they need these screws here, because you have this little screw in the handle and then that screws into here like so. That screws into here and then that goes all the way into the G10 like that. Yeah, just like that. So I do not know why you need these two particular screws. Maybe they realize that going from titanium to G10 you need the extra structural rigidity, so that's the only reason why I could think of them having this. Now these two screws, I could not take them apart. I initially thought they were thread locked in there, so I did the hairdryer technique where I blew shot hot air onto these two screws. This guy came out relatively easily after I heated it up, but once I took it out I realized that there was no thread locker at all, which means that the screws were just in really tight and I couldn't get this guy out using the hairdryer technique. So what I had to do was I had to take a bit kit, okay, a bit driver, put it in there and I use a hammer and then just hit it to kind of create some kind of vibration to loosen up the screw, and then that finally did it. So it took me three attempts with 3 different methods of trying to unscrew this guy to take it apart. The hardware is titanium, so just keep that in mind that titanium is a bit of a softer metal. It can be treated to be harder, but it is a bit of a softer metal, so you can I can feel it, a bit of burring on the outside here from when I tried to really force the screw open. There we go. Take that guy out, and then once this guy's out, okay, we can take off the handles. Let's take out the blade a little bit, reduce any kind of pressure, and wiggle it out, and there we go. And one thing that I would like to note here is that the liners both on this side and this side is labeled with LC200N. LC200N is like H1 steel on steroids. It is practically rust proof. Like dip in salt water, leave it in salt water for a week, it will not rust. So is Vanax. So that just means that this knife is pretty much completely rust proof. You know, the screws are, and all the other hardwares are made out of titanium, also very extremely difficult to rust even after long periods of time in salt water. The detent ball here is ceramic from what I can see. So this is, and phosphor bronze washers here, also extremely difficult to rust. So I do not need to worry about carrying this guy during the hottest and the sweatiest days. Whether I'm cutting up fish from the ocean, I think we're gonna be a-okay. So removing this, it does look quite clean, and that is because I've already taken this guy apart as I have already explained, and I'm just going to show you guys the process of how to maintain this guy. Just gotta take out that. There we go. That's out. Okay, so now just using a little microfiber cloth, just gonna clean up the washes here again. It was very like greedy, ginky. I don't know what it was. It had a lot of black stuff, maybe some machining residue or whatever from the factory. But yeah, it was like really like gunky on the inside when I first took it apart. Now, the only problem, I do appreciate that they have a D-shaped pivot here. You can see there, D-shaped pivot to stop it from free spinning. But without a tool on that side, I gotta be careful how I position this, because even if it rotates a little bit, which it won't here because even the line on this side is also D-shaped, so it won't rotate. However, if you have one of those knives that on the opposite side here is perfectly round, this will rotate. Luckily, they're very smart. They have added the D-shaped holes on both sides of the liners. Very, very good. Alright, so we gotta make sure. Now watch out for this guy. This guy for some reason can pop up quite easily, and although it is a D-shaped pivot as well, although it is a D-shaped pivot screw as well, a D-shaped Chicago screw as well, but it does rest in a perfectly round hole, so this guy will rotate. So that's a bit of an oversight in my opinion. So without further ado, let's put everything together. A little bit of oil here, a little bit of oil here. Now the oil I've put is just for lubrication purposes, not to prevent rust as I would with other knives, because this is after all a rust-proof knife from Quiet Carry. Add a little bit there. Now one thing I do need to note is that the stop pin is free floating. As you can see there, it can kind of move, so you want to make sure that that doesn't slip out or whatever during reassembly. Okay, put that in there like so. One thing I can say about this knife is that the tolerances are pretty tight. Like, unless you don't, you gotta make sure that everything is lined up properly before you push everything in, because if not, it's not gonna go in. Sign of good tolerances. You can kind of see where the phosphor bronze has kind of polished up the stonewash on the inside that you can see there. Yeah, it's nice. Alright, a little bit of lube here, a little bit of lube here. Just over lube it a little bit, because a little bit more lube is better than a little bit less lube. Okay, that goes here. Now what you want to check is that you want to make sure that the shiniest part is the one that's touching the blade, because that is the part that rotates. I am rhyming just like that, and even if it doesn't, don't worry, over time like it will re-polish itself up. Next up, on the detent ball track right here, putting some of that just to make sure the detent goes in goes on and off the tang of the blade and out of the detent hole quite easily. The detent is pretty strong. Now I do like strong detents, but my thumbs are sore, man. Like this thumb, this finger, not this finger because I've not really tried it. These fingers are sore from trying to flick this guy open and close, which I will cover in the full review. Okay, let's just make it a little bit more smoother. Now it does not have a detent ball ramp, which would have really improved the closing action of this guy. Now, key here is now to align everything up, get everything to click. There we go, click, click, click. Right, now these opposite ends of the screw pivots, they are meant to lay flush. If they are off by a little bit like they are now, it's fine, because once you screw it in, it will suck the pivots back in, which is always a good thing. Now, reassembly time. This guy goes in the back here, T8 pivot, and I'm just gonna hand tighten this because I don't need it to be super tight like it was originally. What's happening here? There we go. I don't need it to be super tight like how it was originally, where I can't take it apart at all. It's really tight. That's what she said. Okay, let's try that again. Different angle. There we go. Uh-oh. Wow, the screws. Okay, the head of the screw has fallen off. Oh my god. That has never happened to me before. The head of the screw broke off, guys. Look at that. Head of the screw broke off. How does that even happen? Now I'm not even able to take this guy apart. If I wanted to. Well, technically I will still be able to. All I gotta do is just put it over the screw. But that has never happened to me. That has never happened to me before. Okay, I gotta check if I can actually even take this guy apart. Will this guy come off? Okay, it does come off. But yeah, the head of the screw is completely... it broke off. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. Now let's see if we can put it back together. Alright, that's a first for me, I gotta say. Wow, okay. Now, that's surprising to me because I got this knife because I thought it would make my life easier, less things to worry about. It's kind of doing the opposite thing to me right now. Such is life. Okay, that's in. Let's put the pivot screw in. Okay, that's in. Let's put the body screw in. Now, that is kind of not lined up. See, it sticks out a little bit. In theory, once I tighten this, it should suck everything back in, and just like that, it's flush again. Okay, let's check the centering. Centering is pretty much perfect. We are way too tight. Definitely no blade play. Let's reduce it a little bit. Still no blade play, which is a good sign. Definitely a lot smoother. Reduce. Okay, still no blade play, which is really good. I'm liking that. See how much we can get away with. Okay, now there's a little bit of blade play. Yeah, let's just tighten it up a little bit. There we go. No blade play. Good action. Alright. So, surprisingly difficult knife to take apart. And surprisingly difficult knife to put back together. As you can see here is the head of the screw. And that's all, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this moment. Something that's never happened to me before. A screw head broke off. And as always, I guess you can stay ready for anything. Ciao.